everyone. How are we all doing? We all doing good?
Yeah.
Hello.
People are always scared to be first, I think, with that.
Yeah.
Can I get one more? How are we feeling? Are we feeling good? Awesome. I'm also feeling good. My name is Rachel. I'm a vocal feminization coach and head coach here at the Academy. I've been teaching trans voice lessons for around about the last 3 years. Absolutely adore it. And it's my pleasure to be here with you this Sunday to do a bit of a workshop. I think this is workshop number 9 in our series. And all of these are recorded, and you can find all the different videos on demand on our YouTube channel. And the whole idea of today is that we're going to have a bunch of different volunteers head on up on the stage with me and go through a few voice problems. Anyone who is looking to get some tweaks or who is just the whole idea up here. We're also going to be doing some questions in between relevant to this, and some questions at the end if we have time as well. So before we get started, I also want to give a massive shout out and huge thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you all so much. You make this possible, and to all the Academy staff as well for continuing to put in so much work into this world. It's lovely. It's great. So a little bit about me. So for me, my voice was one of the main things that stopped me from transitioning for years. My voice originally was, right the way down here. And I thought, yeah, no, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get a voice that feels me, that feels comfortable, or that's sustainable, but there is a way. There is so much that we can do with voice. It's so flexible. It is a bit of a marathon and not a sprint. It does take time, but I promise you that as long as you don't have any sort of vocal injury, if you put in the work, I think anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. So for today, I also want to get a quick show of hands. Who is here for their first time? I see a lot of familiar faces, but who's here for the first time? Awesome, a bunch of you. Sick. Great, good to have you here. So before we get started, I want to go into a few little bits and bobs about safety and some of the different terms that we're going to be using to help describe voice. I'd also like to ask that while we go through today, to keep chatter in the crowds to a minimum, because it can get pretty loud when you're in the stands and people are trying to listen. So if you've got a conversation, please do feel free to explore our wonderful world here. And yeah, that would be great. Feel free also to try out some different exercises off mic. I may go through some exercises where I ask you all to join in, but we'll get there when we come to it. So safety-wise, nothing that we do should hurt is the whole idea here. Nothing that we do should hurt. If you find that you've got any sort of pain, if it's like a sudden pain or it's like slow building ache, all the same, stop what you're doing and let myself, let Jess know, or somebody, a vocal coach know. We shouldn't have any sort of pain while doing this. You may feel a little bit of fatigue, like, oh yeah, I've used some muscles that I haven't used before. And it's totally expected that when you first start with this, that you get tired quicker. For me, when I started training, I could use this voice for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, and then I had to stop. But now I can use it all day, and it's what I do. So it does take time. Now, as well, if you find you've got any sort of unintended change to the voice, if you find that your voice is like really hoarse, or if it's like really shaky, if you find that it's you can't get as high or as low as you used to be able to, or as quiet or as loud as you used to be able to, please again, stop what you're doing and let someone know. If you are ill, don't practice. If you've had a heavy night on the booze, don't practice. If you have, if you're quite dehydrated, get hydrated and then practice. If you're on Spiro, definitely get hydrated and then practice. Hydration takes around about an hour for it to affect the vocal folds in the way that we want. Practicing first thing in the morning is not the best idea because morning voice is a thing, and a good warm-up is going to be really helpful throughout. So before we move on, does anybody have any questions with regards to vocal safety or what we should be looking out for? Anyone can please raise a hand or do a little jump if you've got any safety-related questions. No? Cool. Okay. Oh, yes. Hi, Princess. Hello.
Hi.
What's your question?
Is carbonated beverages bad for voice?
They're not the best. So carbonated beverages, if you can, water is better. Diluted juice as well, great. Carbonated beverages, what happens is that the CO2 in those beverages, it turns to carbonic acid, and we can get quite an acidic environment. Acid reflux can also cause a problem, but generally we want to try and minimize those if possible. But I also want you all to have fun. I want you to live lives and not worry about your voice all the time. So summer's great, but don't just exclusively drink Coca-Cola or anything like that. And as long as you're sensible with it, it should be fine. That also applies to caffeine. If you have a lot of caffeine, you might run into some problems, but a cup of coffee every now and again, no worries. Same with cigarettes and vaping. I know what it's like. I used to smoke around about 10 to 15 Marlboros a day. It was a whole thing. It makes things harder, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It makes the likelihood of vocal injury greater, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Try and minimize rather than cut out is the main thing. Okie doke, so today we're going to be going through different people's voices, and while we do so, there's going to be some different language that we use to be able to understand and articulate some different things. One of these words is, well, there's three main things that we change in vocal feminization, and I'd love to get some hands in the crowd if anybody knows one of them. You can raise your hand for me if you know any of the big three variables that we're changing. Yes, Gagus, hello, what's one of them?
Pitch.
Pitch, absolutely. How high or how low we're going is a huge, huge, huge factor. I wouldn't say it's the most important thing in this whole journey, but it definitely makes a big difference. So pitch, how high or low we go, we're going to be aiming for an average normally of around about 160 to 200, 210 hertz, depending on the individual. There's a lot of wiggle room and customizability. But a great place to start is with a G3, which is that note there. If you can't get that, no worries. You'll get that in time as you practice. While you explore pitch, there's a really good app that I recommend. It's called Voice Tools, and it's available freely on both iOS and Android. It comes with some great features. It's got a pitch tracker on it, so you can see what's happening with your voice. And also, it's got all of these different notes that I'm going to be talking about today down at the bottom. So it's really, really handy and helpful. So pitch is definitely one, great. We also have associated with pitch different registers. We have our M1, which is our chest voice, our regular speaking voice. And we have our M2, which is our falsetto voice. All of this Mickey Mousey stuff, the high note and take on me, all of that stuff. We want to spend maybe 90, 95% of our time in M1, but every now and again, using a little M2 isn't bad. Okay. The main thing is, we don't want to base the whole voice on M2. It's very difficult to get that sounding authentic, and it's very difficult to get loud, and it's harder to do in the long run. So apart from pitch, I'm looking for two more answers for the big three things that we change. Does anybody else have any ideas? Yes, Marbariel, hi. What is your answer?
Resonance.
Resonance, absolutely spot on. So resonance, it's all about the space and size of that space within our throats, our mouths, and our lips. So just to check over here, can everybody see this lovely diagram on the screen? There's R1, R2, and R3 business. Please wave your hand if you can see it. No, if people can't?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, I'm just going to resync for those.
Wait, are they on the sides?
Yes, it should be on the sides. If you're on Quest, you may not be able to see this right now, but we do have a solution in the way. So these different areas, our throat, R1 is the biggest one. If we make that smaller, we get a brighter sound. If we make that bigger, we get a darker sound. So here I am with a really big R1 throat space, and then I'm going to slowly try and make it smaller, and then all of a sudden you can hear that the voice gets more feminine. The smaller the space, the brighter the sound, and it's a huge gender identifier in the voice. And once we get control of it, it is wickedly powerful in us getting a great voice. We also have the mouth space and the lips. Basically keep the mouth a little bit smaller if you want a brighter voice, a little bit bigger otherwise. It's mainly about aesthetic tuning, what you like and what you don't. We also have the lips. If we get the lips out of the way, ooh, it's nice and bright. If we bring the lips together, ooh, it's a little bit darker. That's the whole idea. I want to do a quick test with everybody just to make sure we're all on the same page with resonance here. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to shout out your answers, okay? We're going to do a little bit of a pitch versus resonance quiz. I'm going to make two different sounds, and I want you all to shout out if it's pitch or if it's resonance that I've changed. For example, that would be pitch, or that would be resonance. Everyone feeling good about that?
Yeah.
Cool beans. All right, here we go with the first one. Shout out your answers when you're ready. What's that? Pitch or resonance?
Resonance.
Resonance.
Spot on.
Resonance.
Great, let's do another one. E. What about that one?
Pitch.
Pitch, yes. Cool, good, good, good. Let's do a few more. Oh, what about that one?
Resonance.
Resonance, absolutely.
Resonance.
The main trick to tell here is that if you feel like you can make a melody, even if it's just jaws, like a do, 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 it's going to be pitch. We can't sing with resonance. Like, ooh, 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 unless you're doing some crazy Mongolian throat singing, like, we're not going to be able to make a tune. Okay, one more of these here. Let's see if everyone gets it. Yo, yo. What's happening there?
Pitch.
Yep, you've got it. Great, awesome. Perfect.
Okay.
So there are a bunch of different exercises on this stuff here. You can find out more information about this over on our videos on demand. If you look at lessons 2 and 3, you can find out all about this stuff with resonance. And if you look at lesson 1, you can find out all about pitch as well. Some great resources on there. All right, there's one final thing that I'm looking for. Does anybody know what that last variable is in voice training? Wolfie, I saw your hand shoot up there. What do you think it is?
Wait.
Absolutely, it's weight. Spot on. So vocal weight is all about how much drive and oomph we put into the voice. For example, that's a very light vocal weight. That's a very heavy vocal weight. It sounds pressed and buzzier. We can feel more vibrations. So a good way that we can do this is I want you to all to imagine a cute little creature. And we do this all the time here, and I think it's great. Imagine a cute cat or a dog. It's adorable in your hands. I want you all to give me on the count of 3 a really nice, really soft. Aww. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Aww. Yeah. Great. Awesome. Now we want you to imagine that creature again. It is adorable, but it's just thrown up all over you, and it's the worst. There are chunks. It's terrible. I want you all to give me a nice old please. I don't want any rumbling, but here we go. 3, 2, 1, Perfect. Thank you all so much. So the whole idea here is that as we have lower pitches, like if I was to go down to my old voice, I need a lot of heavy vocal weight to drive this voice forwards. If I use the same light vocal weight, it's hard to use the voice. It's really difficult for me. But at a higher pitch, it's easier to use a light vocal weight. It's more sustainable. If you find that you're getting tired after speaking at a higher pitch for a certain while, try reducing your vocal weight. It also sounds really darn femme. And finally, it also really helps us with blending between our M1 and our M2. If I have a soft vocal weight, I can blend. If I have a heavy vocal weight, it really clicks and breaks. So vocal weight is really, really useful. All right, with all that said and done, let's go ahead and dive in with our first volunteer. The way this is going to work is that I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock for each individual that comes up. We're going to try and see what their voice is doing, what they can work on, and see where they are in the journey. Now, for this first volunteer, I would love to get somebody who's here for their very first time today. Has anybody just made it to one of these sessions for the first time? Crimson, I think your hand was the first one I saw. How about you come on up here and everyone, can you give a big round of applause to Crimson, please? Woo! Awesome. Hello, Crimson, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's just that, well, my game is running at like 20 frames per second, even though I have avatar limiter set to like 10 or 20. That's just what happens when your computer isn't that good.
I know the feel. I know the feel. I've had the worst computer for a while. Recently upgraded it, but I know the feel. If you like to, you can look this way, and I can come around on this side if you want to reduce some of those frames as well, if that makes life a bit easier for
That only improves it by like 5 FPS.
you. Okay, never mind. Rightio, so let me go ahead and start this timer here. Great. Okay. So what I'd love to know, Crimson, is a little bit about yourself. How long have you been training with voice, and how have you found it so far?
As for how I would introduce myself, that is not a question that I usually am prepared on the spot for, but
Mm-hmm.
with voice training stuff, it's just kind of been a bit on and off over the past
Yeah.
year or so. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I found that naturally some aspects of fem voice just are part of how I naturally speak as is, even before
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
head cracked.
Yeah. I can hear like your intonations moving around quite a bit. It's pretty dynamic. Like you don't set in one spot for a while, definitely. And so when you've been practicing on and off, what are some of the difficulties that you found, or what are some of the things that you found have worked pretty well for you?
What I've found is that, well, of course you need to figure out a time of day and do it consistently. Procrastination.
Mm-hmm. But I know what it's like. Cool. One of the things that can really help is alarms and setting reminders and things like that can be great. But I also want to know more about when you have been able to practice. What's that practice looked like? What have you been up to?
Usually it's attempting to make vocal noises that try and tap into the very top of my register, which ends up being like
Mm,
2 octaves higher. Except that I
okay.
eventually realized that I'm not sure if that was even working, really.
Would it be okay if you were to demonstrate that for me? Like what sort of things you'd normally be doing?
I'm gonna need to grab some water.
Yeah, please feel free. While you do so, I want to remind everyone it does really help if you've got some water handy. And as well, if you are going to come up to volunteer, we need to change some settings. And please do make sure that in your audio settings, that noise suppression is turned off. You're on push to talk and mic activation threshold is all the way down. That way I can hear all of your lovely voices and everything that you're doing. Alrighty, and just while Crimson goes and gets some water as well, I think he's back. Never mind. All right, Crimson, how are you feeling?
Going into pass through, I went at I'm now getting 16 FPS.
Oh no. Do your best. So,
Yeah, it's
if you could demonstrate a little
stabilizing
bit of this
now,
practice for me.
sort of.
Good. Okay, Doc. Mm-hmm.
If you heard that
Cool.
right, that was what I did for like an hour straight.
Okay.
Usually,
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what was the objective of this practice when you were doing that as well? What were you normally like? I want
trying
to
to
fix X
attempt
problem. Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out if I could try and make sure fem voice muscles were working correctly and able to be
Mm.
strengthened enough, but now I'm not sure if I was really doing anything.
Well, I think that as long as you don't hurt yourself, any practice can be good practice. But I think as well, there's ways in which we can get you practicing differently. So that exercise, if you're looking to strengthen up your M2 and to do like a bit of singing up there, beautiful, really, really good. Some even better things you could do with it would be some SOVTEs. I wouldn't recommend going for just a flat out an hour. Often what can be better is just 5 or 10 minutes here and there. But if you're looking to strengthen up your M2 and get that accuracy more, great. You mentioned a little bit about strengthening up those muscles. And now I would argue that in voice feminization, it's about 80% skill and accuracy, 20% muscular building. There are muscles involved, and it does help as we practice that they get stronger. That shouldn't be the main goal. Even if you find that you have not the best access to certain pitches, we want to start working on a beta version of your voice where you can. So what I'd love for you to do for me, I want to see how your M1 is and how you can be coming in quite a bit lower, because I don't think you need to go that high for what you want to do. So first of all, I want to see if you can make a few of these sounds with me. I want to see if you can go ahead and take a nice soft ah sound and just gently glide it up from a comfortable low pitch, up and up and up and back down, but without going into that M2, without going into the falsetto. It's going to sound like this. Ah. Keeping it nice and soft. Can you give that a go for me? Cool. Okay, let's try with an sound. Try that one for me. Good. Awesome. Okay.
You can kind
We're
of
gonna
hear
try it with
how it like cut out a little with how I was trying to produce that.
So what it sounds like to me is that there's a little bit of a break in your ranges, that you're going quite easily up into that M2, and we're spending a lot of time up here, but really what we need to refocus and recenter on is our M1, and it's not as high as you might think. So the next thing I'd like to do is to see how your pitch matching is. We're going to go for a few different sounds here, and what I want you to do is to listen to this tone and then try and make it with a nice soft R sound. As you hear it, imagine how it would feel to produce it, and then try and execute it. Here we go with the first one. Try that one for me. Cool. You went the octave lower, which is like, I can't hit that today. It's going to be a little higher up. Let's try that again. It's all good. Don't you worry. Here we go once more. Glide up to it if you need to. When you're ready. You've got it. Good. Here's the next one. Try that one. Good, good. Yes, and the next one here. Good.
Are we just
Awesome.
walking
Stick
up
with me.
Are we just walking up a whole step each time?
Not always. That last one was a half step, but good, good, good. What I'm trying to do is to find a place that feels in the fem range for you, but feels like it could be improved upon more easily. What we don't want to do is work where you're at like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 difficulty. Like if we're going all the way up here, and it's really hard to like hold it together, we're not going to make much progress. What we want to be able to work is like where it's a little tricky, but not so much. And I think I found that with you. What I'd like you to do is to go back to this note and to do a little bit of counting with me, but with every number, we're going to get a little bit louder. I don't want you to yell, but I want you to start quiet and get a little bit louder. Have a listen to this.
That might be
1,
difficult since
2,
both my
3.
parents are at home.
Okay. Oh no, I understand. This might be part of the problem. Okay, try again. Well, we'll keep it nice and quiet, but I do want it to kind of soft and then like conversational volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you try that one for me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Cool, cool, cool. So what I'm finding here is that I don't think it's as much a mechanical problem for you to be able to make these pitches, because in your voice, as it stood, I heard you go to this note and to notes much higher, all in your M1. What I do think is happening, though, is that we aren't able, when we're in this exercise mindset, to kind of execute it as well. Now, I think stage fright can always be part of it, but one of the main things as well is being heard. You said to me before that currently, you're living with parents, and I'm imagining it's not the most supportive environment. Is that correct, or is it quite good?
It's kind of in the middle, I guess. It's
In the middle,
hard to
yeah.
tell sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
there aren't like entirely rejective.
I understand. Well, I think even when we've got people with the best intentions in the world, if we feel like we've got an audience, it's really scary to start to work on our voices, right? It's kind of hard. When I was doing this, I had, that's it. I had a roommate and I was terrified of him hearing and listening and like, because it sounds really weird, us making all these sounds sometimes, right? I know how that can be. But what happens is if we practice where we are scared of an audience, we hold back. And this is what I heard you doing was, it was scary. We didn't fully commit to the sound. And it felt as though you had to keep it quiet while also trying to get louder. And it just ended up not being too stable. So more than anything else, I feel that, there's our time. Let's just wrap this up here. More than anything else, I think finding some better places to practice could be a really, really handy thing. Do you drive as well, Crimson, at all?
I don't have a driver's license, and I am nowhere near being able to get a car, afford it. You
Okay.
know.
No problem, I understand. Sometimes you know, if you can do it in a car, that's great. A friend's house can also be great. I've had some students that have made like a little recording booth, like makeshift, so they can have like a duvet over it, and you can start to practice a bit easier. But the main thing is maybe having a conversation. If you find that they are somewhat supportive, maybe just getting it out in the air and being like, look, I'm doing some singing lessons. We can always rephrase it as such. I'm doing some voice work generally. We don't always have to say, look, I'm working on vocal feminization, right? And what I would say is once you've got that, start to work on some of these fundamentals of pitch, where you can go. And I would set the goal for you to be able to try and get.
That I have tried working on vocal feminization stuff, but I haven't really figured out a regular way of doing it and a methodology that I just know is gonna work, because truth be told, VR is probably my best environment to practice.
Awesome. What I recommend then is, have you been to any of Jess's classes so far? Are you aware of Jess's classes? Well, we have another vocal coach over here at the Academy. Her name is Jess, and she is fantastic. She hosts regular classes that are free to attend, that aren't recorded, and those classes run from Monday through Thursday, and they are at, I think it was 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. We'd love to have you there, and maybe we can start to work on some of these fundamentals more and give you more of a routine that you can get back to and start to make some real progress with. But I'd like to ask everyone to give Crimson a big old round of applause, please. And I'd like to thank you so much for coming up on stage. Yay. Absolutely great. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Awesome. Great job, Crimson.
Thank you.
So one of the main takeaways there that we had was about practice space, mindset, and environment. When we are practicing and we are constantly like scared of someone overhearing us, it makes it really, really tricky. We need to be able to commit to sounds. We need to be able to make mistakes. We need to, because without making mistakes, we don't learn. There's no way, I've never seen it when someone I give them instructions, and every instruction from baseline until feminized voice, they've been able to nail. We all make mistakes, and we need to be in a place where we can be comfortable with doing that and with being heard as we go. Some different things that can help are, going to a friend's place, practicing in VR is fantastic. Practicing in your car can be great, or indeed just like going under your duvet and making a few different sounds.
Like, when I'm trying to project my voice, it's easier to go in the tenor range rather than soprano or alto or anything. So
absolutely. And in your singing, do you find that it's mainly like, a lot of energy in the songs, a lot of volume, and sometimes a bit of belting? Or do you have some kind of like softer, quieter ballads that you use as well? Or is it often quite like, yeah, let's go?
well, most of my ensemble singing is in a larger choir, so it's about having the balance with everyone else as opposed to exactly.
Okay, one of the things that I hear in your voice that I think we'd love to change is vocal weight. I feel as though there's definitely a difference between the two voices that you demonstrated, but currently it feels that they're quite like neighbors, that they're quite close to one another. When we have like a target voice and a baseline voice that are like really quite close, it's very easy to start in one and then kind of drift down to the other, because there's not a huge difference in some of the other variables. I think, yes, your pitch is going up, your average pitch is better, but I still want to see more change. So what I'd like to do is go into a really nice soft vocal weight with you on a few different things here, and also encourage you that in your vocal warm-ups that you review some of your song lists and see, are there any sort of like quieter things, like Billie Eilish has some, that's kind of what I'm thinking, like softer, more slow, and like that you can concentrate on. So let's try making a few sounds together. Let's go here. So first of all, can you give me a really nice soft There's the pitch glide in your own one. Good. I want that even softer, even quieter. Good. Okay. Beautiful. Well, now I'm going to try this. We're going to go between these two different notes. It's going to sound like this. Okay, when you're ready, give that a go. Good. Even softer now. I want you to imagine that cute little kitten that we did at the start. Okay, when you're ready, try that for me. Good. You feel a little bit of like drive coming in as you go upwards in pitch, like a little bit of an like you're dynamically getting a little bit heavier. Cool. So what we have is if we imagine that over here on this axis we've got pitch, okay, and on this axis we've got vocal weight. Actually, it's going to work way better the other way now that I think about it.
Yep,
Oh no!
variable. Yep.
I've fallen. I can't get up. 2 seconds.
You've fallen and you can't get up.
It is a real struggle. There we go.
If
So
only we
we're
had the
pitch down
power
here.
of double jumping.
And I know, right? And wait up here, what we find is that as your pitch gets higher and higher, we have this sort of thing coming up. Okay. Now, for
Yeah,
you,
absolutely.
I know it may feel more straight, but what I want you to do is to really try and mentally, as you get higher up, really, really, really try and soften out. Okay. Here we go. We're gonna go for it.
That's hard.
I know, it's hard. It goes against everything that your choir says, everything that your singing says, but we need to do it. Here we go again. That's it. Good. Absolutely. And I want you to start softer as well. That's the ticket. This is what we want. Awesome. Okay. We're going to go up a little bit higher. Okay. Softer as you go up, even softer. I know it feels like you're a little mouse, but it's so important. Try again for me. Beautiful. Now we're going to try something else. Are you any good with lip trills, like these things here? Good. Okay, try this for me. Awesome. Too many beans. Have a listen. Nice and soft. Okay, when you're ready, take it away.
I can't do very quiet lip trills.
So try increasing your airflow. Yes, you're getting it. Okay, let's try this. We're going to do... do one really heavy, and then softer again. So it's going to sound like... Then... And finally... Keeping the airflow up as you go. Softer. And again, softer. Awesome. Thank you so much. So the thing about those lip trills, as well as them giving you like some lovely back pressure to help with your vocal folds, they also are a great litmus test of what is our airflow doing. And I'm finding that as you get softer, your airflow is coming right down.
Absolutely.
We need
yeah.
100%. So that's going to make it feel really effortful, really quite laborious to get up there with that soft weight. We need to get more air moving in this machine. So the next thing I want you to do is, again, a really nice soft lip trill. We're going to go up to around about a G sharp 3. Your range is great, but we're going to keep it nice and soft. And at the end, we're just going to open up our lips and keep it nice and soft, okay? So again, have a listen and repeat after me. Okay? Yes, good. Okay, now do that same thing again. Big breath in and do some counting at the end for me. And while you're counting, if you need to breathe in, all good. When you're ready, go for it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Now we're cooking with gas. This is the feeling that I want more. Now, I know that this feels like it's so tiny, like I'm sounding like a mouse. Oh my gosh, it's so small. But the thing is that when we have the idea of the voice being like neighbors, right next door to one another, I would rather we push the dial into where the vocal weight is too light, and then you fall back kind of just by habit, rather than you kind of getting onto the spot and then gravity pulls you back, right? And that's just us at time. So just to wrap up, what I would do is some continued SOVTE work, getting up there. The lip trills are going to be really good for you. I think the storm water is going to be really good too, because it's a great physical feedback machine for your airflow. Get up there, get nice and soft, and practice your voice to sounding like really, really soft. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Start to expand out of that. Hello, hello, hello. Then play with resonance into it as well. And what I think you'll find is a really new and exciting space where you can start to explore, and it feels really different. But don't trust the feedback that your body gives you, because it'll be screaming at you like, oh my God, this is too quiet. Where is the buzz gone? Listen to recordings, listen to yourself in live audio feedback, and just experiment with like being up there, okay? You can then, after maybe a week or two of doing that, start to add a little bit more drive in there, but be always careful to be able to come back. And this is the sort of space where I'd recommend you explore a little bit more. Keep on doing this with your active practice in private rather than out there in the world, because I know what you mean. And if you feel like I'm not being heard, this is going to make it worse, but keep it in there. And then when you're ready, unleash it on all your friends. They're going to be absolutely shocked. Any questions there, Fluffy, on the back of that?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can I get a huge round of applause for Fluffy, please? That was great. Thank you so much.
Go, Fluffy!
Awesome work. Awesome. Cool. So the main thing that we were looking at there is when people have a background in choir and singing, or just using voice generally. Like for me, this was my main problem. When I started out, my voice when I started was like really like this. The resonance was bright, but the whole thing was really too thick. And I had this kind of aesthetic of sounding kind of like gnomish in my mind. I was like, what the heck? Turned out the missing ingredient was vocal weight. Especially those of you who are like me and had like a really bassy starting point, we're used to just driving that voice with a bunch of vocal weight, and that's not what we need to do. We need to get softer than we think to be able to then exist in the lovely little middle ground. So go softly, softly, softly. Practice in online interactions and listening back to yourself, and in environments where you don't really feel like you need to project, because as soon as you're in a loud coffee shop, hey, can I get you? Then the whole thing will fall apart. So practice that, get it good, get it automatic feeling and a lot less that you have to think about it. Then start to put it out there into the world and see what happens. And I think that should be great. All right, any questions on the back of this session here from the crowd? Any questions at all there? Yes, Cassie. Hi, or Cass. Yes, hello. What's your question?
So those of us who are more musically inclined and quite enjoy singing and stuff, can we get valuable practice out of stuff like that in the car and whatnot?
Yeah, so yes and no. I think that singing can be really, really valuable practice generally. It gets your voice moving. I think that it's as long as the singing isn't going in the other direction. So if we're trying to get softer, having some softer songs, some ballads, some things where we aren't belting are going to be really, really helpful. When we're practicing when driving, it can be good, but it can also be bad. The reason is that there can be a lot of road noise. And so if we're in a loud environment and we're trying to sing and hear ourselves, then we're going to be belting again, and we're going to get right back into that heavier vocal weight once more. If you find that you're just looking to explore your range, then awesome. But I think that if you're already a musician and already singing, we want to go up to around about C4 in your M1 at the highest. If you can do that, and you've already got a lot of agility in your voice, and you're able to mimic different voices in pitch and inflection pretty well, then the utility of singing kind of diminishes. It's still nice as a warm-up, still good, can help with your M1, M2 blends, but really what you need to be focusing more on is voice work. It's this dedicated time, keeping quiet and listening back to yourself. Listening back to yourself is so, so, so important. I know I say this all the time, but you need to listen back to yourself. I know dysphoria sucks, but it's so helpful. If you're an artist and you're trying to make amazing drawings with perspective and everything in it, you can't improve if you don't look at your drawings. And the same is true of voice. Some things that can really help are live audio playback without any sort of lag. That way, we don't have an echo going on in our own heads, and we don't have that awful moment of, oh God, I've hit the record button, I've hit stop now, I've got to play the big green triangle, the play button of dysphoria, and just like you're bracing yourself. Hearing it live really helps. The Blue Yeti mic can be great for that. The Razer Siren Pro or the Razer Siren X, I think, has live audio playback. Really, really fantastic stuff. And if you're a musician and you've already got that gear, even better. Any follow-up questions on that, Cass? Does that help?
That does help.
What did
Thank
you
you.
just say?
The
Awesome.
last thing you just said, like what year?
Oh, like if you got anything that can do live latency free audio playback, great. So like an audio interface, a Blue Yeti microphone can be great. The Razer Siren, one of them, I think it's the X and the Pro, have a headphone jack where you can hear yourself live, and it all really
Would
helps.
OBS do that?
No, the reason is yes and no.
Oof.
If you have, I know, if you have something called an ASIO driver, it may. The Windows drivers by default, I'm not sure about Apple, but Windows sound drivers are very slow and very laggy. They aren't really made for real-time audio playback. So you might find if there's a big delay, like even just like, hello, hello, it'll completely throw you off. You're not going to be able to hear yourself very well. So
And that is why
maybe,
ASIO
but it
for
needs to be
All
like
exists.
immediate. Yes, ASIO for All is a good way to do it.
There's actually a free sound driver called ASIO for All that lets you access it much more easily.
These are good facts. If you feel confident with installing ASIO for All, good solution as well. Thank you so much. Any other questions about what we just talked about there? I see one here. I can't make most of the noises. No worries, you're not alone. A lot of people can't make most of the noises when they start out. Lip trills especially can be pretty tricky. The main thing to do is to practice what you can. Try starting off with some humming. Try starting off with some zzz or vzz noises. Take a look back at our first lecture where we went over these SOVTEs, and fingers crossed there'll be some that you can make, and you can start with just some sustained 10-second notes and then some fits. Or please do feel free to come along to our classes run by Jess. We'll practice exactly that in the first 2 lessons of our 2-week curriculum. So completely, we got you. Any other questions along here? I see a hand. Hello, Zio. Hi.
Hey there. I was wondering, where do you go to access these classes with Jess?
Yeah, so they're actually in the public, the public instance of the world, and they are right behind you, just in that courtyard there. We meet, as I say, at 12:30 Pacific time, Monday through Thursday, every week, and they're completely free to access. So I really implore all of you who are wanting to work on your voice, please do come along. Sorry, go ahead.
What time zone is it? Sorry, what time
Pacific.
What time zone is it? Pacific. Thank you.
Pacific, absolutely. So for me in the UK, it's at around about 8:30 most evenings. Yeah, I hope that helps. Thank you.
That's not that bad.
Any other questions? It's not bad, no. Any questions around here? But I see you're moving along. Let's do some of the Twitch and stream questions, please.
Nice. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Any Discord ones?
And can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great.
All right, cool. So we have 3 questions in the Discord, 3 very interesting questions. The first one is, does posture impact voice?
Yes and no. So when you're practicing, having good posture helps. It will make more of an impact when you're just starting to learn to do the thing. But later on down in life, I use this voice when I'm lying down in bed, when I'm lounging out on the sofa, and it doesn't really make a difference. But if you're entering a space of more difficulty, entering that kind of sweet spot where it's like a 7 out of 10 difficulty, then yes, posture is really going to help, because it means that you can get a lovely big breath in of air, which gives you the resources that you need to be able to power your voice. So when you're practicing and focusing, yes, please. When you're just using your voice generally out there in the world, less and less so as you get better. Great question. What's the next one, please?
So the next one is, how does voice training affect puberty or early HRT?
How does voice training affect puberty or early HRT? Do you mean, I'd ask you to rephrase that for me, please. If you can quickly write a rephrased version of that. Do you mean that, like, does it affect your puberty, or does it affect how does HRT affect voice training? I'd love some clarification on that one, please, if that's possible. What's the next one, please, Bard? Do shout out when that next one comes.
The next one in the meantime is, how does temperature in a food or drink affect safety in voice training?
Okay, so temperature in food and drink. We want to keep our tissues nice and warm. Warming up is a very literal thing. By warming up our vocal folds, it really, really, really helps out. So a nice cup of tea, not scalding hot, of course, but a nice warm cup of tea is really, really good. And it's actually what I've got by me, like in most of these sessions. What it's going to do is it's going to make everything that you do a little bit easier. It's probably going to help you to get some gunk off your throat and just start to have your voice behaving more. It's going to follow what the tune of your flute is saying. If you have a cold drink, it might do a little bit of the opposite, but hey, it's not to worry. Again, I want you all to enjoy life. I don't want you to be worried about having like an ice cold drink of water and then be like, oh no, my voice is going to go out the window. It's not. Again, it might be more of an impact when you are just getting used to this stuff. But later on down the line, as you get more consistent, you're going to be able to weather some of these different changes in homeostasis in your body as they come along.
I'm gonna need a drink of water.
Question was phrased great. What was that question, please, Bard? Sorry, Bard, I can't hear you now if you're talking.
Do you think he's dead?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, hi. Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry, what were you saying, Bard?
So the other question was, does it affect how the muscles grow while growing on on HRT, which I suppose refers to if you start voice training earlier in life, is it easier or something like that?
That's a really cool question. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I haven't seen any studies that talk about the role of voice training or vocal feminization in puberty. I imagine that a lot of things with voice, you know, getting used to voice, getting used to balancing your airflow and your vocal folds and exploring pitch is likely going to be a good thing. With regard to starting feminizing HRT, it doesn't really matter because feminizing HRT, unfortunately, does not have an effect onto the physiology of the voice. I haven't seen any evidence that that's the case. When starting masculinizing, I always trouble that word. When starting that HRT, yes, it's going to definitely make a difference. I think as long as you are safe and you listen to any sort of warning signs that your body might give you, if you're getting fatigued or anything hurts, that's going to be the most important thing. But I can't give you a clear answer on that one. I apologize. Rightio. So looking at the time, I'm going to open up the floor to just general Q&A at this point here. So I'm going to go from this point onwards here. Does anybody have any other questions about voice for me today? Please do raise your hand if that is the case. And Little Gundon, hello.
Hi, I had a question about nasality in voice. I've been voice training for about 3.5 years now passively, but I've noticed that with my voice, sometimes it has a lot of nasality in it, and I was wondering if there's anything we can do to help work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're sounding great, by the way. So with nasality, it's an aesthetic choice. It's less to do with gender and more to do with just how you would like to sound. One thing that you can do with nasality is monitor how much of the airflow is coming out of your nose. So on the diagram here, we can see that there's this little arrow going into the nasal cavity, and that's called the velum. And that's a technical word for our soft palate, the soft and squishy bit at the back of our mouth. That acts as like a little bit of a flap, and it says how much air is going to come out into the nose and how much air is going to come out into the mouth. And where the air goes, the sound goes. So if I'm putting like a lot of air through my nose, then you can hear that it gets a lot more nasal. I currently have a kind of hyponasal voice. I don't have too much air coming through my nose. A lot of it's coming through my mouth. A great way that you can check what your soft palate is doing, if your voice is nasal or not, is by plugging your nose. So if I go and the non-nasal voice, and plug my nose, sorry, please keep muted for the time being, thank you. So if I go like that and I plug my nose, there's no change. If I get quite nasal and I plug my nose, you can hear that kind of sound happens. And it changes the tone of it. So another way you can do this is start to talk with your nose plugged, with you just pinching your nostrils. And if you find that it only really happens occasionally when you hit an or an sound, great. If you find that when you're talking, it like completely gets really pressurized and changes your voice a lot, it's likely you're being too nasal, and we need to focus on where the air is going and try and make more of it come out of your mouth. Another way that you can do this is with an SOVTE, this time specifically with the straw and water. If you use a straw and water, and we're doing it correctly, with a good amount of airflow through the mouth, then the bubbles are going to continue. If I just go through my nose, I can't make any bubbles. So it's a good way as well to see what's going on with that one there. So try that out. Try going into some really big extremes. Try going into like a very nasal sound and a not nasal sound. Getting control of it and then noticing when it comes in your voice. Hopefully that should give you like a good toolkit to start to explore this stuff here. But great question. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
And as
Thank
I hear
so
it, it doesn't sound like extra nasal to me. It sounds great. So keep up the good work. All right.
that's
I've got
good to
time
know.
for good. Excuse me. Okay, I've got time for a couple more questions here. Any other hands here? Any other questions? Yes, FaZe. Hello. How can I help?
So I'm practicing staying in M1 and not trying not to fall into M2, and I'm having difficulty going beyond like an A3, like 210, 220 hertz. Do you have any recommendations for exercises to increase the range of your M1?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Loads and loads and loads. SOVTEs are your biggest friend. They are so helpful. What I would say is that when we had that question about singing before being useful, this is actually an area where singing can be really, really useful. So singing in the area where you can go without you having any sort of voice flips or any sort of breaks is great. The more time that you spend there, the more agility and control that you're going to develop. As well, I would say that looking at vocal weight as a potential cause as to why this is happening is also a great idea. Like when you get up to that A3, is it quite heavy, or are you able to get quite a lovely soft sound? Okay. Sometimes some nice trills going up and down can be helpful. Just real quick, FaZe, can you try that for me? Giving me like a nice little please. Good. Okay. Now, can you give me an Good. Okay. Last little thing I want you to do is give me one of these. Oops, sorry. We're gonna go up to here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Good.
See, I
okay.
feel like that was M2,
and once again,
though. I don't know.
I think it was definitely getting a little bit more M2-ish for sure. So the other thing I'd say as well is that M1 and M2 are on a spectrum. They aren't complete like binary things. So as the vocal folds come together less and less and less and just the tips go, we get more of an M2-ish sound. As long as you're able to get louder, as long as you're able to get a good sound and to get an aesthetic that you like, don't worry too much about it. Some other things I'd say, yes, SOVTEs, try practicing a little bit louder as well. Try changing some of the other variables. So going for a louder SOVTE. We don't want to push or squeeze, but can you try that for me, getting a little bit louder as you go up? I see what you mean. They're really blendy, huh? The problem that you've got is a good problem. The main thing that I have problems with people is when the ranges are very separated and that it's very clear that they're in M2 and that there's often a lot of cracking. Your M1 and M2 are like best friends. They're blending through really, really nicely. So I'd say sing around in that area where it gets like just a little bit tricky. Try some of those SOVTEs out. Try some from sirens. Experiment with weight and volume. And I hope that will help as well. And, 5 to 10 minutes a day of SOVTEs does wonders for your voice. It really, really does. Awesome question there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have another one here. Yep. Can a plugged nose be problematic? Yes and no, it just affects the sound quite a bit. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can still sound wonderfully femme with a plugged nose. And with an eye on the time, everyone, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to wrap it up here. Just as we end today's session as well, I want to let all of you know who have made it right to the end. First of all, thank you so much. And to help celebrate the upcoming Trans Academy birthday that we've got coming on later on in September, I'm also offering a little bit of a discount to everybody who makes it to these sessions. This discount is going to be valid up until the end of September, and it's a discount code that you can use on transvoice.com to book in a private lesson with myself or with Jess. It's going to be 20% off, and the code is Academy20, all caps, Academy20. And if anyone would like to get some one-on-one help, I'd love to see you there. But apart from that, thank you all so much indeed for spending your Sunday with me. I really appreciate you all being here.
What's it called again?
Keep up the practice, keep up the good work. Transvoice.com, and the code is just Academy20, all block caps. All right. I also want
Thank
to
you.
ask yourselves to give yourselves all a big round of applause to all the volunteers, to all the people who've been asking questions. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of you. Take care.